David, how are you?
I'm all right. Hey, Alonzo.
Okay, wonderful. I was just making sure I couldn't hear the sound through my headphones, so I had to take them off and pop the video back on.
No problem. There was no sound to hear. So hey, one thing at a time.
Okay,
I always go on early to make sure that everything's working because balancing Zoom, balancing the Facebook Live, balancing the comments, all that stuff. It's a little bit of a chore.
understood. Cool, cool. So CLU, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Got that last year, nailed that out.
All right. I'm actually going for the CRC this year.
DRC, I don't think I've heard of that one. Is that a retirement one?
Yeah, it's from Infree.
Okay. Well, there's so many out there.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Eventually I want to do the CLU.
There you go. What about CHFC or CFP?
If you get the CLU, you don't really need any of the others. But
About right, yeah.
But I understand having the additional credentials there.
Well, they kind of go together. It's like, CHFC is or CFP is all the planning stuff, and then the CLU just adds that insurance component to it. At least that's the way they're positioning it now.
Okay.
Because now CLU is only 5 courses.
Okay.
A couple decades ago, it was 10. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
So they're shortening it, kind of streamlining people's career processes.
Well, sort of. What they're doing, I think, is they're trying to encourage more enrollment, and at the same time, I think that they're positioning it as more of a insurance specialization as opposed to it being a planning credential now. So because it's still only 3 courses on top of CFP and CHFC. Tony Filippone.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Still morning, I guess. It's not noon yet. How's it going?
That's right. You guys are on the West Coast.
Well, I'm on the West Coast or the left coast, depending on how you want to look at it.
Oh my. I had a very leftist person in yesterday for her appointment. She wanted all socially responsible investments, so that was interesting.
Okay, that could be done. We'll just take out all the alpha. So.
Yeah, it may not grow, but we can give it to you. Brookstone actually has a they call it ESG platform, so I was like, sure, I can do that for you. So she was a smaller account anyway, but whatever, we'll see where it goes.
Of course, the alternative could be, if you find for whatever insurance company you're representing, just find how they are socially responsible and give it back to their communities and say, hey, we could all put it in here and you have the opportunity for other things. So that's the other option that I might go. I learned that little trick a few years ago. So
how do you, I was wondering about that. Like, I know on the AUM side, but I wonder on the insurance side, like, how do you justify that they are, that they fit that mold as the insurance company fits that mold?
Well, every insurance company should have some bragging rights. So you just got to find it on their website. And then at the same time, you can show how they're investing in all sectors of the economy. You're not hiding anything, you're just showing that they're also doing all the other things of, protecting the environment, whatever else. So
yeah, most of them have some altruistic programs, I'm sure,
yeah,
that you can track down. Makes sense.
But for anybody that turned in early or chimed in early, you got a tip there. So anyway.
That's right. No charge for that.
Yeah, I should really put up my PayPal account, shouldn't
I? You have one of those, what's that called? The fan page, or the fan only, or what is it? There's
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. Yeah, I'm so out of the.
Oh God, no, I'll go to Patreon first.
There we go.
Patreon is actually Patreon will work with my YouTube channel, so I could work with it that way. But no, not OnlyFans. There's a little too much scrutiny on that kind of thing.
No one wants to see that, Dave.
Yeah, we ain't going there. Yeah. All right, got Matt McIntyre. I got Steve Martinez. All right, glad to see you guys. Even though you all are hiding, but that's okay. We got the Zoom protection program going on. Okay.
I'll be doing that later this evening. I got a call I'm going to be on. I'm not going to be showing my face either. Good morning.
All right. So anyway, Tony, I've got like a few questions in here to ask, but it's really going to just be, the narrative that you'd like to share.
Are you going to allow for any Q&A for the group if anybody wants to ask anything?
Pretty much afterwards, I think.
Okay.
And of course, if they have a comment or a question, I'll be monitoring the chat both in Facebook and on Zoom, giving preference to anybody that puts a comment or question in Zoom. So I'll monitor both of those, and but then afterwards, and we'll know that there'll be a feeling that it's concluded. Then we could just open it up.
Yeah, is there a you got a time frame that you want to go today, or?
I've had these things last a couple of hours, depending on the topic. I doubt we're going to go that far. I think
Yeah, I
we'll
don't
be
think
at
I can, so.
okay.
I could probably do about an hour, and then I probably need to take off.
Okay. Yeah, so we should be all right with I think how this will plan out. I think I've got your link in here somewhere you sent me. Let me find it. There it is. Good. All right, I'll post that at the appropriate time here, because we're going to talk about that.
Very good.
There's that. Good. I should just leave it alone. If I click a button, it'll probably disconnect me. I've had that happen before too.
Don't leave me in charge, Dave. That would be a
Okay.
I'm a technologically challenged individual.
Everybody thinks that I master technology well. Believe me, I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel every time. At least I have the technology, but it's
That reminds me of the old $6 Million Man. Remember that? We have the technology. We can rebuild them.
think of a bionic thing.
Yeah, by bionic.
Sorry, my closest current equivalent of that is the Borg. So anyway, yeah. All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour. It is 10 o'clock Pacific time, July 14th. And so I want to welcome everybody to our continuing group expert series. Today, I've got a special guest and friend of mine. We've been friends online for a long time. We've only talked a couple of times, but Tony Filippone is a top producer and a mentor, and growing his practice out of Rockford, Illinois. But you've really grown your practice substantially, but you've had a very varying career as well. And we talk a little bit about that, because we don't always talk about everybody's beginnings and such, and how do we get started, and the nightmares that we go through sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, there's probably a commonality of that, when we talk to other agents. I mean, not everyone's been through it, but I guess most of us probably have it to some degree. I've had a rocky start for sure. I think I started, my first insurance gig was the Equitable in New York, because I lived in New York. That's where I grew up. And had a manager there who, he just stuck me on the phones. I mean, literally calling out of the phone book. I mean, we don't have phone books anymore, but I was literally calling out of the white pages, just going up and down the streets, calling business owners, trying to get an appointment. And then I'd get some appointments, and my manager was too lazy to want to go out on the appointments unless he really thought that they were awesome. He wasn't going to go. It was like, oh my goodness, this is horrific. So, I went on a few meetings with him, and I was like, well, this is not going anywhere. I mean, I probably was there 3 to 6 months, and that was all that lasted. Then I had a cool job at a credit union for about a year. I was selling. I know you're a bank. You started in the bank world, right, David?
I do have that commonality there. And I was at a credit union as a financial advisor for 3 years. So I know that world reasonably well.
Well, I wasn't back then. I was just starting with my, insurance licenses. So I wasn't like a full-on advisor. And this program was pretty interesting. They had I was standing in the lobby with a rate book, quoting whole life insurance and to credit union members. And I had a quota to sell 2 policies a day, which if I was getting full comp on, I would have been making a ton of money. But of course I wasn't. The company was making a ton of money. And I was, just standing there in the doorway. And it was interesting. I kind of figured out the comp scale to the point where if I sold more than my quota, I really wasn't getting compensated. So let's just say I was not the best employee.
Okay.
I would hit my quota and then go play pool down the road, and just kind of hide from the manager. And I did that for almost a year, but I'd hit my quota every day, because it was pretty easy to sell 2 policies, stand in the lobby of the bank when the credit union was sponsoring the program. So it was a cool entry. But I knew I was never going to really make any substantial income. So it was just, kind of a door opener to the industry.
These are kind of like final expense type policies, so to speak.
Yeah, no underwriting, just, and we had, like I said, we just had a rate book. We'd say, hey, how old are you? Hey, this is a great savings program from the credit union. And by the way, if something happens, here's what you get for insurance. If you kept it for 20 years, you'd have this much in savings. And because you'd have a cash value on the rate book. So you could show them how much cash they were going to get, how much death benefit they'd get. And it was kind of cool. They had me in a hospital because credit union was part of a hospital. They also had municipal workers. So they were a big outfit in New York. And like I said, it was an interesting experience. The hospital was nice because you'd see a lot of nurses, and they were trying to get insurance sometimes for their spouse who maybe wouldn't buy it otherwise. It was kind of like a work benefit type of thing. So it was definitely an interesting way to do it. Not a bad way to work. It's just like I said, there was not a lot of money to be made, in that. And maybe if I went into management with there, but that really wasn't my goal. So I got fed up with that eventually, and then I was like, I was just kind of burnt out on the sales world, and I was like, I gotta go find some kind of I want to work for an insurance company, but I'd like to be like an underwriter or something in the home office, or so. And I didn't know how to break into that. I had no clue. My dad drove a truck all his life, and he sent me to college because he wanted me to have a better life than he did. But I had very little direction. There was no well, here's the course you should go down. So I just went around to insurance company with a resume, dressed up in a suit and tie. And I went to MetLife, and I went there, and they were like, look, you don't want to do that kind of back office job. We have an opportunity here that's going to blow your socks off. And they took me to a room, and they said, you see all these file cabinets? Inside these file cabinets are all orphan policy holders. You don't even have to prospect. You just call these people and help them. And that was the story they gave me. Little did I know that once I came on board, I'd have to fight tooth and nail to get to those orphan policy holders with my manager. But he did give me, I had the C's. I had the whole drawer of C's. Anybody with the last name C was my guy. And the story gets better because that whole cabinet full of clients, the guy who sold those was the biggest crook that ever worked at MetLife.
Oh God, I've been there.
Okay, so
Wow.
he was churning policies. He was borrowing. Every client had 3 policies, right? Because they took the cash value from policy 1 to buy policy 2, and then as soon as policy 2 had enough cash value, he went back and borrowed against that to buy policy 3, which this Ponzi scheme was only going to explode, at some point, because there was no, not enough new money coming in to support all of this. I'll tell you, well, I probably shouldn't tell you that story. I don't know. I get in trouble with
No,
MetLife.
no. Telling those stories is good, so we can see what stuff is out there. Stupid is as stupid does, and let's avoid all that crap. And we can.
Well, this is a true story. This is a true story. So I went out to one of these clients, right? And business owner had some sizable policies, and he had lots of loans on his contracts. Had no idea what was really going on. So I pointed out to him, well, here's the situation. And I said, if I were you, what I would do is I would write a letter to the New York State Insurance Commissioner. Or before you do that, I'd write a letter to MetLife and say, listen, I'm going to write a letter to the New York State Insurance Commissioner if you don't correct this situation. And he did. He followed my direction. And MetLife did honor the agreements, and they rescinded the additional contracts, and he recouped $98,000 of cash value.
Excellent.
Because of my advice. Now, after this, he ended up buying annuities from me. I don't think we did any additional insurance. He didn't really need it at that time. But he did invest, additional money into annuities with MetLife through me. So, here I went and made the client whole, right? Everybody's happy. Except though, here's the downside of this story is that I get a letter from MetLife attorneys saying, Tony, don't ever do that again. I'm like, but I did the exact right thing, right? I helped this guy. I got him his money back. We reestablished the relationship. Now he wants to do business with our company again. But of course, they weren't so happy about writing that $98,000 check, and they didn't want to write that over and over and over and over again. So they, please don't do that ever again. And it was like, well, wait a minute, who do I work for here? Am I really, I mean, at the end of the day, I want to represent the client, not the company. Not that I, wish harm on the company. I want to screw them over, but I want to represent the client first. That's,
right.
So, I didn't know how to do that at that time, but that's how I've structured my business today, being an independent fiduciary advisor. I'm not tied into any specific company, and I'm not knocking anybody who is. There's nothing wrong with being a captive agent, by all means, but that's not the way I wanted to run my practice for reasons that I just shared.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, sometimes we're told the insurance companies work for us, and really they do. But I agree. Client first. Of course, I think at that point, if this point now is that if I were to come across that situation, like, look, you can't reference my name, but this is what you got to do, and so try to keep me out of it, so I can do it right.
Yeah, exactly. It's sometimes we walk a tight line, right? But anyway, MetLife was good. I was there like 7 or 8 years,
Okay.
and I made Leaders Conference my first 2 years in the industry, which they told me, that's your path to management, but they never offered me a management position. But and I don't know that I would have wanted it, but I did make Leaders my first 2 years at Met.
What was your family situation like at the time too? Because I know you're married with children. What was your family like at that point?
I was young. This is right out of college. This has been my only career. That's why I could say I'm 30 years in the business and I'm only 53 years old. This is all I've done. This has been my full adult career. I mean, before that, I did everything. I mean, I changed oil, waited tables. I've driven a truck. I mean, I've gotten dirty. I know how to work hard. But as an adult out of college, this was the career I chose and stuck with. Sometimes I'm not sure if I stuck with it because I'm really determined or just, nuts, maybe crazy, I guess. Because
It has to be a mix of it all. I'm determined.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm stubborn and I'm not going to quit. Nothing's going to deter me no matter what. So
that's
yeah,
it, yeah. Tell me I can't do something and I'll prove you wrong.
yeah.
So, but that's, that was the path. But yeah, anyway, I enjoyed working there. It was nice. What I missed about MetLife was the camaraderie. Working for a captive agency, you have a lot of people who are in the same boat as you, and it's nice. We go out to lunch together. We had lots of company functions, and I missed that. Those were good times. I enjoyed those people that I met there, and being independent is a lonely, it becomes a lonely business, which is why I really appreciate this group. I really do. I mean, Dave, this has been a lot of fun for me. I've met some fantastic people in this group, and some of them I've met in person since becoming a member of the group, like Ron Ron and I were at an event. Ron's last name escapes me, but you probably know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
We
Ron
were at
Sneller. Yes.
yeah, thank you. We were at an event for Brookstone. I brought him into Brookstone because he was looking for a place to hang his hat. So yeah, I've just met some really cool people, yourself included, and got Charlie Gipple, so I've just got connected with some, if I really thought about it, there's probably a good, handful of people that I either work with or have, spoken to. I know there's a bunch of people I've tried to mentor on a phone call here or there, and I enjoy that as well. So the group has been a lot of fun for me. It's probably the only thing I really do on Facebook that I care about. So,
Awesome. Yeah. I'm finding it interesting the synergy I'm starting to see between some of the different producers in the group. So I'm like, I know you're connected with Barry Rutten, and Barry's getting
yeah,
connected
Barry.
with Charlie, and I'm noticing we're getting connected with Kelly Smith, and I'm just like, wow, I didn't expect that part, but I'm seeing this interaction. Like, this is really, really cool. So I'm happy to have a small hand in that to make some of those connections happen, which is fantastic. Of course, we all want to grow together, grow our professionalism together. Because if we can make ourselves better, then of course we have that ripple effect on the entire industry, which is kind of a big overarching goal of mine. And if we can help other agents doing a better job, I'm all about that. Tony, we both share a mentoring organization. Talk about where you were at and how you discovered the Insurance Pro Shop, however many eons ago. But yes.
Yeah, so this is kind of cool. Even though I made leaders conference at MetLife my first 2 years, and every contest that MetLife had that was based on number of apps written, I won. And that was two big contests. One I won a Mont Blanc pen, which was pretty cool. Another one I won a trip to I think it was Jamaica or something. Just because of number of apps. So I was working hard, but the crazy thing is I really wasn't making a lot of money. So I was winning these competitions for the amount of effort I put in, but I didn't see it in my paycheck. It was a very modest income, back then of maybe $40,000 to $50,000 a year, something like that. And sure, that was 30-ish years ago, 25 years ago, but it still was, trying to live on Long Island and buy a home, making that kind of money, and good luck, So it was a struggle. And then I wanted, so in there, I got married. My wife moved out to New York. She ended up working for me. She was a nurse by trade. She was an LPN, but wasn't crazy about, wasn't, I guess, comfortable in New York and Long Island. She was still adapting and wasn't like gung ho, let's go into nursing in New York. So I needed help with growing my business and, support with all the paperwork and such. And so I brought her into MetLife. And so she actually became a MetLife employee that I paid. So her salary came out of my salary. It was kind of an interesting thing that I just stumbled onto. I mean, I had top producers say, how did you do that? Because they didn't know that was a possibility. I was like, well, I just asked and they let me do it. And it was cool because she had all the codes. She was, official capacity could look into everything, upfront legal. She had all the ability to go research policies and such, in the MetLife system, because I brought her in an official capacity way. So that was kind of a neat thing. We got to work together. We've worked together really ever since, on and off. She's kind of more almost 100% at home, but for a long time she supported me in the industry. We worked very well together. Anyway, we were in New York, so we got to the point where we wanted to buy a home and start having children together. Right, we were married 3 years, and we're just having this. We had a 5-year plan. That's when we're going to start having kids, and we were living in a 1-bedroom, apartment, and housing. This is right around 9/11. So, in fact, we were thinking about buying a home right prior to that. And then after 9/11, housing prices jumped up like 30% overnight almost on Long Island, because everybody was fleeing the city and trying to get out of the city because they didn't want to be subjected to terrorism again. And so, we were like, we could barely even think about buying a house before that. And then with that, it was like, well, that just shot down all of our dreams and goals. So we would go visit my wife's family in Rockford, Illinois. And, they had just moved. And I think they paid maybe $120,000 for their home. And it moved from a so-so neighborhood to a much nicer neighborhood. And I would go out and see their home. And I'm like, I had reverse sticker shock. I'm like, how is this possible? To buy a home like this for $120,000. So I said, hon, I think we should move back to be near your parents. She loved the idea, because she was never really, in 3 years, never really acclimated to Long Island, and was thrilled to be able to go back home. And for me, it was like, this is, a way I can support my family. And I could see buying that kind of a commitment on the income level I was able to earn. So that's what we did. So we moved within a month. I bought a house, which was crazy, because this was pre housing crisis, right? I buy a $95,000 home with no real job. And I just bought it based on the fact that I had a job at MetLife, right? And I still was technically employed there, but I did, when I left, I just left. I didn't even tell my manager. I told him, like, I think the day before or something crazy, because I just didn't, I knew they'd try to talk me out of it, and I didn't want that conversation. And so I was just like, no, I'm leaving. Sorry, it's done deal. I'm heading out tomorrow. Didn't even give him enough time to give me a send-off party. So I came out here, and he said, well, you got to talk to MetLife out there. And I did. And it was just like, I don't want to have to train a new manager. It took me 3 years to train my original manager, to leave me the heck alone and let me do my job. And I was like, I don't want to do that again. I just, if I'm going to move halfway across country, leave my client base behind, I think it's time to go independent. So that's what I did. And it ended up being a lot harder than I thought. So those first 2 years of being independent were like an insane struggle. I literally think I have these numbers in my head. They may not be 100% accurate, but I think the first year I spent about $20,000 in leads and made $19,000. And I'm not making that up. So, when I did the math on that, I'm like, well, this is not working out the way I wanted it to. And I was doing mortgage protection, at the time. That was always kind of my bread and butter market. And then, of course, with MetLife, I had my bread and butter market, and then I had my, my orphan clients. I did have, some, after fighting tooth and nail for them, I did end up with a decent book of orphan clients, and that helped, keep things going. So, it was, at that point, it was pretty much a struggle. My wife went back to nursing, and she was basically carrying our family, which was not a very comfortable position for me. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to be the breadwinner. My dad was in my household, and I wanted to be the same for my family. And I felt like I was failing at it. And then we had bought a home, and based on expectations of things going better, and then and before we knew it, here comes our first child. So here I am, independent, barely making a living. My wife's carrying the bills, and we're about to have a baby. And I was like, oh my God, this is, this is a tough spot to be in, right? So, I just, I tell this story often, and I say, I prayed and I cried and I cried and I prayed. And I really did. And I feel like being directed to Lou Nason and the Insurance Pro Shop, I really feel like that was an answer to a prayer. It really was. I get choked up thinking about it because it just turned my whole life around. So, he helped me to go from like, nothing to making like $80,000 in like 6 to 8 months. I was close, I had a lot of the building blocks. I had a lot of the pieces, but I was just missing some. And basic stuff, and it's stuff we're not taught. It's training we don't get. And that's why I'm always on it. David, you see me on here. I'm always telling people, these new people in the business, go talk to Lou and Jeremy. I mean, I can't, I can't tell you how much they changed my life. I think from that point on, sure, I've had some bumps, but I've never struggled like that again, since just the basic building blocks that they taught me. And really it came down to, doing the right job for the client, which is, again, what I loved about them as well. It's not just about making money, but if you do things the right way, not only is it the right thing to do for your client, but it comes back like 100-fold. It's crazy. But just know we're not taught the right way. We're taught to churn and burn and buy leads, and and nothing wrong with buying leads, but you get on this hamster wheel of just close first. And I did that. I went out and did the mortgage protection market and worked the heck out of it. I've tried phone sales. I've done, to try to just do the whole, let me just buy internet leads and sell them over the phone. I mean, I've done it every which way. But what Lou and Jeremy was like, hey, slow down, go in there, gather the information first, really dig in, see what you can do. How can you put this person in a better position than when you met them? And then go back and show them, here's where you were on track before me. Here's what I can do if you just take this advice. What do you think? And I mean, I wasn't even hardly closing people. I was just, this is better than that, don't you think? Yeah, sure it is. Well, next step is just to take some paperwork. You okay with that? Bam, and I was writing, overnight we started, I say overnight, it was this process. It was, probably a 6 to 8 months or more process to get to that, about $80,000 income. And the big difference was slowing down, doing a 2-call close, seeing where they were spending the money today, redirecting some of that money around and helping them put it into a better place. And the difference was, when I was doing mortgage protection, my average case size was $650. My average case size jumped to about $3,500 in a very short period of time, once I actually listened to what Lou and Jeremy said. And I think that's key. Sometimes we have the information, but we don't listen.
Yeah.
Or we fight back because we don't think, right? It's like you just weren't ready to hear it.
Yep.
So it took it, but Lou was so patient with me. And I mean, if I was mentoring me, I would have been like, that's enough, kid. Get out of here. Like, you're not going to get it. Because I would fight back. I would really fight. I was like, well, that doesn't work. And, because I was still in this hamster wheel mentality where I got to go out and close and close and close and meet and close and how many appointments and how many, and it's like, it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about, you don't need all those appointments. You don't need all those leads. If you can make, $3,500 a client and do it right, how many sales do you really need to make a good living? You don't need 25 leads a week. If you're closing, a good percentage and, making a good solid case on each person. And that's middle America. That's not high net worth people. It's, the average Joe can afford to put a couple $100 a month away if they have a decent job. You know, not the low end, no, but the middle American person with a decent job, 2 people working, yeah, they can put significant money into an insurance contract. They just haven't been shown why they should, and they just don't know what they don't know. And if you can go in and educate them, you know, and show them side by side the difference, what they're doing versus what you're recommending, it's really not a sale. It's an educational process. So anyway, that changed my life. I give those guys credit every chance I get. I don't make anything to endorse them. I don't get any kickback. They should probably send me something, but I don't get anything for doing that.
They
And I'm
should with
happy.
me as well, but at the same time, the best thing I like is that when I call them, I get priority treatment. So I'm
Right.
sure you do too.
Yeah, I just called Jeremy not too long ago because yeah, I was having some issues with my life sales, and he was able to kind of help me relook at it. So because lots changed in the industry, as we all know, you know, the way these contracts are structured, you know, has changed quite a bit. So, you know, we need to adapt to stay current with all that stuff. And Jeremy's a great source of being able to do that. So
Yes,
I love having them on my team still.
yeah, absolutely. So, and it's everybody could tell when you look in there, when there's a brand new agent, I usually tell people you go there first, you can check them out. And it's usually the training I wish I would have gotten my first week in the business. If it was that, if I got that training the first week, everything would have been so different for me. But hey, better late than never. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. So that's usually where I go with that. But like with all training programs, we eventually evolve and we evolve into more of maybe of our own values. We evolve into another level. And I know, Tony, you've definitely done that because you're certainly not in just the middle market. You know, you're doing more retirement planning and such. And you've, of course, you've got your Series 65. You're doing assets under management. So you're evolving beyond what just Lou and Jeremy were teaching you before. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, interesting you say I still consider myself a middle market guy. Because that's who I am. I mean, I want to be true to myself. I mean, I grew up in a blue collar family. My dad owned a business, but it was a trucking business. It was a get dirty business. I mean, you would go out and we worked. We were out in the heat. We would come home filthy, but we made, you know, a good income, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's my people. Those are my people. You know, the doc. No offense to people who have higher education and doctors and lawyers and so forth, but I don't see the world the same way they do because I didn't grow up in the same world they grew up in. So I still really enjoy serving, you know, middle America. Most of my clients are factory workers. I do have some nurses, but again, not the doctors, not the, you know, I'm not going after the high end client. And I just, like I said, there's a disconnect there for me because we didn't grow up in the same world. So I enjoy working, and I purposely seek out those kinds of people, and they appreciate me because you know, they're not getting this kind of an education anywhere else. So it's really a win-win. You know, they're the people I enjoy being around, and I'm able to really help them and serve them in a special way that they're not getting anywhere. In fact, they're ignored by a lot of the you know, bigger firms. So you know, I mean, we had an advertisement in our area not too long ago, and they were like, you know, this big, you know, Savant Wealth Management, what have you, and they were all like, oh, we now take clients with less than $500,000, and I'm like, well, whoop-de-doo. Yeah. Like that, you know, like, oh, thank you so much to, you know, help the little peons of the world who struggle to make 450, and you'll still work with me. Oh, thank you. That attitude really kind of puts a, you know, it bothers me. But yeah, I don't have a minimum. I can't. I know that economically and financially that probably makes sense, but ethically and morally for me, I don't care if you have $10,000. I'm going to try to help you figure out what's the best way, because who am I going to send you to if I don't do it?
Yeah.
So I, you know, I don't have any minimums. I've thought about it. I've, toyed with it in the past because it does get hard to, not reach capacity when you have a lot of little clients. But I do have quite a bit. And I have about 200. I don't have a ton, I've got like 220 clients. I just looked at it. And 100 of those are A clients with more significant dollars. And when I say significant, my sweet spot is between 250,000 and about $1.5 million, 2 million. You could say 2 million if you include everything, $1.5 million if you're just looking at investable net worth. So that's my average client, which is, kind of, I guess they call them the mass affluent,
Yep.
But which, I love working that market. So anyway, you asked me about, I went off on a tangent, but you had another part to that question.
Well, it's just the evolution of how you've been evolving yourself, and your offering and such. That was all right in line with that.
Yeah. So the evolution there was, let's say once, Lou and Jeremy got me to a certain point, making around 80,000 a year, selling mostly life insurance. And then I started, I guess the next big change up for me, once I had my sales process down, was to learn how to market better. And I had always wanted to kind of do like these dinner workshops. I had seen other people doing them. I was like, that sounds interesting and kind of fun. But I didn't have the confidence yet to do that. So I went down to an event from the Insurance Pro Shop, and they had a guy there. His name was Phil Calandra.
Yes.
Yeah. So Phil was actually down there, and he was doing an event, and he actually he showed us his workshop. And I was like, wow. I said, I saw Phil do it. I was like, I could see myself on his level. I wasn't there yet, but I could see that I could do what he was doing. I was like, I could do this. It gave me the confidence to go home and try it. So that's what I did. I went home and I did dinner workshops, and they were a big hit. And I did them the way the Insurance Pro Shop teach, kind of did it a localized version, like just to my own, circle of influence. And then I branched out and did mailers, and I did those for a while. And that was a game changer. That was definitely a game changer. But again, I've been doing this a long time. Things change. Our pitch, our presentation at that time was about equity harvesting, which is kind of ironic because it was before 2008. So everyone had all this equity in their homes, but they weren't adequately using their equity. And so we were teaching them that equity is a dead asset, and there's a zero return on equity. You don't make money on your equity. So from a business standpoint, does it make sense to leave tens of thousands of dollars sitting idle in your home doing nothing? Now, we didn't take that out and put it directly into life insurance products. Most people we met had debt. So we would take that out, restructure their debt, free up tremendous cash flow, and then put that into life insurance products. I was confident to do that because of books that I read. Doug Andrews' book. I've touted his books before, and I read his book. First of all, if you remember the first Misfortune book. Here, hold on.
I have mine on Audible, so I can't show it, but yep, there it
The
is.
size of this thing, man. And I'm not a good reader. I see Steve's got his copy. This thing changed my life, this book. And I literally read that. Who's that? That's not you with him, is it? I see Steve holding up his book. I read this in a weekend. Okay. And I'm a slow reader, but I could not put the thing down. I was like, holy cow, this is the advice I've been looking for. This is, and I've read previously, I've read Susie Orman's books, and, so I was all screwed up in my head, like not knowing who to believe. But Lou and Jeremy had me read this book, and again, it's another game changer for me. I went out and did it. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to restructure my debt. I took, and my dad had helped me with buying the house. He'd give me a couple bucks to buy the house. So I had some of his money tied up in my home, and it was kind of scary for me because he's old school and thinking, hey, pay this mortgage off early, pay it fast. And I read this book and it's like, well, don't put money in your house. And so I refinanced against everything I had been taught in my life up until that point. Took that money out. I was able to harvest about 20 grand out of my house at the top of the real estate market pre 2008. So I must have looked like a genius to some people. I was just lucky. But I took 20 grand out of my house, paid off my car note, paid off some cards, freed up about $800 a month. And I started putting that into insurance contracts. So when I went out to see a client, how easy do you think it was for me to be able to recommend that strategy?
Oh, easy, because you're doing it yourself. Absolutely.
Zig Ziglar, right? We've all heard of Zig Ziglar. He says, you can't go out and sell Chevys if you're driving a Ford, right? It's not going to work, right? So if you guys want to go sell bigger insurance contracts, you might want to, look at your own situation, and use some of these ideas, and not to say you go out and dig yourself a hole and buy something you can't afford, but if you can redirect money that was going elsewhere into a good solid insurance contract, and it's going to increase your belief level in what you're doing, and it makes it so much. The client says, well, what are you doing with your money, Tony? I said, well, same thing. Yeah. And that's just, if you can't say that, it does make the job harder, right? So anyway, that was a turning point.
A quick note on that is that kind of equity harvesting is so compliant for almost every insurance company. I think there's only one company I've heard that won't let you even talk about home equity, and that's New York Life. So that's what I've heard. But being able to just reposition to pay off debt, every banker in the world will tell you that's one of the best things to do. And sometimes the bank will even require it in order to approve the home equity line of credit in the first place.
Well, a quick nugget on that is part of my presentation on that was, I always tell people, because a lot of people have this mindset that you got to get rid of all debt and even mortgage debt. So to kind of unhinge them from that thinking, I would tell a little story and say, if you paid, let's say I always put it on me. Let's say I paid my mortgage religiously and I was making extra payments, every year I was making extra payments to my mortgage because that's what the gurus tell me to do. And I'm doing that every year religiously. And then unfortunately, something happens to me, maybe my health changes and, I can't, I have a stroke or something. I'm in bad shape. So I go to my banker. I want you to picture me going to my banker. Maybe I'm in a wheelchair and I'm rolling up to his desk. And I say to the banker, hey, Mr. Banker, all that extra money I've been putting into this home because you guys told me that was the smart move. I've been doing that religiously all the way through, but now I'm in a tough spot. What I'd like to do is I'd like to get some of that money back out just temporarily to tie me over until my health recovers and I can get back on my feet. Can you work out a loan for me to do that? What is the banker going to tell me? And I would ask my audience that, in my workshops, what do you think the banker's going to say? And, he's going to say, come back to me when you're feeling better, Tony. Come back to me when I can't help you right now. Love to help you, but
Right.
Come back to me when you're on your feet and then we'll see what we can do. Right. Because what is he really loaning me money? Is he loaning me money against the equity that's sitting in my house? Or is he loaning me money, against my ability to repay the loan? Think about that, right? So is it really a safe strategy to tie up tens of thousands of dollars that you can't get your hands on unless you are in a good relationship with a banker? I don't think so.
Regardless of the relationship, the bankers are going to look at one of the 5 C's of credit, which is your capacity to pay, and say, we can't give you a new loan based on your current capacity. It can't be done, no matter how good the numbers are. And I don't know if I'm sure you've seen it. Roy's story that Professor Rodney Ballance had talked about. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I know I stole it, and I've got probably on my Vimeo channel. But the idea that the guy had a 15-year mortgage, of course, was prepaying and sending even extra. Guy got into trouble. The home was foreclosed on. He finally was renting, and now he's renting at a property that if he would have done a 30-year mortgage, he would have been able to keep his home. So that's the payment he's got now. So being able to avoid catastrophe like that, because once the money's in the home, there's no guarantee you can get it out or maintain the payments to keep the mortgage current.
which is, again, going back to this book, I mean, it shows you the two biggest avenues is redirecting home wealth and redirecting 401k wealth. And again, nothing wrong with buying a home, nothing wrong with having some equity in your house, nothing wrong with having a 401k. But most people are out of balance with those strategies and they don't have enough insurance. And so there's a disconnect or enough available cash to get their hands on. I was just this last year, I upgraded my home during COVID, basically. I was able to buy a house that most people couldn't buy because I was able to get my hands on the full down payment without having to be contingent upon selling my first home. How many people can say that, right? But the home that was for sale, he had a contractual obligation because he was being relocated, and his company was selling the house for him, and they could not accept a contingency offer during so you got a hot marketplace, and not everybody can come up with the down payment to do that. But because I had money in insurance, I could get the money in a week. That most people couldn't do. And if it was all in my 401k or all stuck in my house, I wouldn't have been able to buy this home. And it was kind of like the only, once we saw this house, it was like we had to have it. So it was kind of, we looked at a bunch of other places and it was nothing compared. So we were just really, felt blessed and fortunate that we were in a situation to be able to do that. And it was because of some of the basic planning that I learned, back with Lou and Jeremy. So I just wanted to touch on before I run out of time, but there was another big pivotal point was I was doing this equity harvesting, and then what happened? 2008 hits, and all of a sudden no one has any equity, right? So what do? You're a business owner, you've got this, great strategy, and they say, oh, find a proof of concept and then scale it until it blows up, right? Because things are always changing in our industry. So you have to be adaptable. You have to change. You can't just say, oh, well, I guess it's all over. No, I adapted that presentation. And what I started doing was just helping people with their debt at that time. So I found a debt pay down software, and I would help people. And what I found is that a lot of people who were in debt were paying way too much money towards their debt and not enough money towards savings. And I would just go in and show them, here's how much you're paying, here's how much you have to pay. Let's put some of that back right into your budget so that you don't ever have to use a credit card again. And the other half of that, we're going to put away for your future, so you'll never have to use a credit card again. And the part that we put towards their future was, usually into an insurance contract. So it just kind of some basic planning for middle America. And I did that for a number of years. And that's kind of what my latest presentation, this thing I put together, on how to break into the community education, because I went from doing dinner workshops, and by the way, my dinner workshops dried up not only because of 2008, but they also just dry up. If you've ever done dinner workshops, and I mean, we got like 300,000 people out in the Rockford general area, but after a point, there's only so many people that are going to come to your workshop. If you're doing the same title over and over and over again, you reach capacity. There's a point where it starts to be less effective.
Got to refresh some things, reattract, re-engage. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does get watered down over time. At least that's been my experience. So, that always left me figuring, well, what's my next topic? What's my next topic? And then I got to realize that, the next transition was, instead of doing dinner workshops, which were a little bit salesy, how can I tweak that positioning to put me in front of people as an educator, not as you're buying them dinner. They know there's a pitch, right? It's not much better than a lead. It's better. Don't get me so. Leads are at the bottom. Buying leads, and nothing wrong with it. I did it for years. But buying mortgage leads, final expense leads, that's the bottom of the barrel because you have no positioning. There's zero positioning. You're going in there, as a salesman, and they know it, right? So there's an immediate, battle between you and them as an adversarial relationship, and you've set the stage for that by buying a lead, because they know what they're going in for. If you go in with a dinner workshop, you've done basically the same thing, right? You're there, yeah, you're educating them, but you're buying them a steak dinner to educate them. They know there's a pitch coming. They're not stupid, right? So there's this disconnect of what are you trying to sell me? When you go teach people in a educational environment like a library or a adult ed community service, it's not the same. It's not the same. They are, the only reason they're coming to you is because they don't want a sales pitch, and they felt like this was something that was more objective, right? That's what they were looking for, objective advice that's not, going to be a sales pitch crammed down their throat. So if you can learn how to do that, and not, and be very, very soft in your sales approach, because you're really not selling anything. You're just educating people and trying to help them. And you're only giving the help to the people who want it. So I let people know right up front, this event is going to be educational. You're going to learn from this, whether you decide you want my help beyond today or not. Some of you are going to want my help. Others are going to be just fine on their own. And either way, you're going to get value from coming here today. And I let them know that up front, so that this way they're not feeling like there's a sales pitch coming, because there really isn't. I mean, if they don't want to meet with me, I'm fine with that. I only want to meet with the people who want to meet with me. Fortunately, I find the majority do want to meet with me, because I uncover topics that they probably haven't really given much thought to. And I'm teaching them stuff that's incredibly valuable. And so by the end of the meeting, they're like, holy cow, this is different. This is something I need more of. And most of them do end up, wanting a meeting at some point. So that was kind of my, that's kind of been the, I went from the mortgage lead guy to the, dinner seminar guy. I've probably done everything in this industry in 30 years at one time or another. Tried it all. But what I've really liked, for me anyway, has been the adult education community. Teaching at a local college, or sometimes it's in the high school. It depends on where you live. But just about every community has some kind of adult ed program running. And if you think your community does, or you want to know how to find it, I put a step-by-step program together to teach people how to do that, because I really think it's such a much more pleasurable way of doing this business. If you can get prospecting to a point where you actually enjoy it, and you like to go out and share and teach, and you don't feel any pressure and they don't feel any pressure, prospecting becomes kind of fun. And when that happens, you write your own ticket, from that point on, and you've positioned yourself as best as you possibly could have positioned yourself, because you're going in with a very, hey, if I can help you, great. Oh, and I will say this too, another big jump for me was working with Sid Walker as a coach, and I hired him, one-on-one to do coaching. Plus, I've read all his books and listened to pretty much every CD he has, or every interview he's done on his website. And I still listen to those interviews over and over and over again, because I want that mentality to always be present in me, to get away from the sales mentality. This doesn't have to be a hard sell business. For some of you it is, and if you're okay with that, I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to convince anybody not to do it that way. For some people that might be the right way to do it, if that's what feels right to you. But for me, it never was. There was a big disconnect. I was never all that comfortable. Even though I guess I'm kind of okay with sales. I don't think sales is a dirty word. I think it makes the world go round. I think we need salespeople. I don't think it's a bad job. I just think it's done wrong most of the time. And I think there's an easier way to do it. What I've discovered through Sid was, like, the more you let go and the more you really change your intent from making a sale to helping the client, the more you do that, the more comfortable you are in your skin, because there's no pitch coming. Eventually, the client starts to see, oh, this is different. There's no pitch coming. Oh, Tony doesn't care whether I do this or not. He's not like trying to push me into a corner. I like this. And then, even if I got to think about it, what's my big rebuttal? Do I got to think about it? You probably should. This is a big decision. How much time do you think you need? Maybe we should, we'll reconnect. you know, and sometimes you do that and they're like, nah, let's get it done. You know, they come right back at you like, let's go ahead, let's move forward. You know, and it's such a cool thing because it's you know, I don't have the book of 50 closes. I don't use closes. You know, and some people never come back around, and that's okay. But you know, the people who do come, the relationship's so much stronger, and they are very happy to refer people. And I don't ask for referrals. I probably should, but I don't ask for referrals. In 2020, I made top of the table all referrals because I couldn't do any marketing, and I didn't ask for one. That was a cool year. I don't think it wasn't just all because of the low key approach, but a good part of it was because of the low key approach. Because people were not, you know, they knew I was the guy to call because I was going to give them the straight answer, whether it was in my best interest or not. It was definitely going to be in theirs. And they knew that, and they knew enough, they felt good enough to send their friends and family to me because, you know, because I didn't back them into a corner. Think about it. The typical sales approach is let's beat someone into a corner, right? And then as soon as we get them to say yes, ask them, can I beat your friends into a corner now too? Who wants to do that? Nobody wants to. No one's going to give you a referral. And if they do, they're going to send you to their enemy, not their best friend. So the process is so screwed up, but it doesn't have to be. And Sid taught me that there's really a better way, and it's a much more enjoyable way to do business. And that changed things. It was kind of weird. Like that coaching wasn't one of these, like, you didn't see it immediately necessarily in your bottom line.
You somehow it works on you in your mentality. And I
Yeah.
think for me, it's like if I can take away the fact that I don't need the credit for making the sale, I need them to take the credit for making the decision. And if we
Very
give
good.
them
Yeah.
that credit for making the decision, then we kind of back off to give them that freedom to make the decision. Then they are buying, and then they're more willing to offer referrals and things like that. So I think that's kind of where the rubber hits the road, I think anyway.
Yeah, I mean, people want to buy this stuff, you know, they just don't know what to buy, and they want to be directed, but they don't want to be sold. So you have to be a leader. You have to say, well, here, you know, because a lot of times they don't have a clue, and they just want you to make the decision for them. I'm okay with that, because I know I'm going to make the right decision on their behalf. And that's, you know, nine times out of 10. And then there's the 1 out of 10 that kind of want to steer the ship a little bit more. That's fine too. You know, I just have to learn to back off and let them steer. You know, I had one guy that came in really aggressive, and at first I was just like thinking to myself, I'm not going to do business with this guy. And then I just shut up and let him talk and ask his questions. And he ended up asking enough questions to sell himself an annuity. And I was like, okay, I'll help you. At first he was just like, man, this guy he wouldn't let me do my process. And I'm like, well, you know what, whatever, like maybe my process isn't that important. You know, maybe he saw something in my workshop that clicked with him, because I do talk about indexing as a strategy, and he wanted some of that, and that's what he wanted to buy. And he went and asked enough questions to get himself to buy one, and I just sat back and took the order. So that doesn't happen every time, but you know, it's cool and stuff like that. It's cool when you could recognize it and not fight with them and be like, no, wait, back up, I have a process. You don't have to be in control of every step. You know, you really don't. You have to let people buy the way they buy and just be there to support them. Some of them are going to need you to take them through a process so that they can justify what they're doing and feel good about it. Others are, you know, have their own ideas and just want to buy certain things. I'll help either kind. I don't care. You know, I'll let them steer the ship if it makes them feel good. I don't have to be in control,
Right.
and that's very freeing. You know.
And so I want to make sure we talk about your course that you put together. So I put the link in the chat, both in Zoom and on Facebook. Let's talk about what you have here.
Yeah. So I mean, this was kind of a thing in the back of my head for years and years. You know, I wanted to put something together for the guy who's stuck. This is really for the guy who's in the mortgage or final expense world, and trying to break out of that, and is interested in doing public speaking. If you're not interested in public speaking, don't buy my course, because it's probably not for you. And if you're not interested in doing more of a consultative approach, again, probably not for you. But if you're kind of tired of the hamster wheel of, buy more leads, keep seeing more people to try to keep up with this, constant, it's a hamster wheel, I've been on it. If you want to break free of that and do more educational events, and you're not sure if you think that that's going to be really hard to break into, you'll be pleasantly surprised. It's a lot easier to break into than you might think. And I try to give all the step-by-step pieces to do it. I even have a presentation. It was kind of the presentation that's in there. I decided to use my, it's a simple 1 hour kind of presentation that, as far as the, what do you say in front of this group to teach them. So I put that in there too, but you don't even have to use that if you don't like it. You can use my course to teach whatever it is you want to teach. I've taught Social Security classes on the college level or in libraries. I've taught tax planning. I've taught estate planning. I've broken them down into 1 hour modules, but the one that I did in the course that I offer is basically designed to sell life insurance and annuities primarily. It's just kind of a course to show people, to kind of dispel some myths, some money myths, like we were talking about with putting your money in your house. Talks about how to, one of my bullet points, how to pay off your mortgage in half the time without spending any additional money, and the more debts you have, the better. That always gets people's attention. That's one of the bullet points they come in asking about. So, we talk about debt. I actually do a debt snowball example. I talk about why 401ks, may not be the best place for your money, why taxes are going to be higher in the future, and things like that. So kind of just, it's all conceptual. There's no product being pitched. I do teach the idea of indexing as a strategy, not as a product. I think that's important. So it's kind of more of a backdoor pro. You don't really want to go in and talk about product before you even know what the heck they need or what their situation is. I don't think we should be if you're going to do an educational event, you don't want to do it on product. And the schools don't want product in there, and the libraries don't want product in there. The product people don't want you to talk about their product unless you put it through, 10 hours of compliance problems. So I just stay away from product, but you can teach concepts, and that's what this was about. So again, my course was designed to help people get from, I've never done a workshop before, to how do I break into teaching a class in my local community, and getting to teaching classes on a regular basis so that I'll never have to worry about leads again, right? Because if you can teach a class a month or a class a quarter, you're good. You probably won't have to do any other prospecting. You'll get referrals because you'll be positioning yourself properly, and you won't need to go out and buy leads, and you won't need to be on that hamster wheel. And the whole job becomes that much more enjoyable. If, like I said, the only predicator there, I don't want anybody to buy my course who's not not going to succeed from it. I don't offer a big, money back guarantee or anything. I priced it, as is, take it or leave it. You buy it. If it doesn't work for you, oh well, it'll sit on your shelf. So what? That happens. I've bought tons of stuff that way. But hopefully it will work. And that was my goal, is that I've given you everything I could pour my heart out into and share with you on what I thought would help you get into the adult education market and be a success at it. I've tried to give you every tool, every resource. I give you the name of my mailing house. I give you the name of my mentors. I give you, actual presentation, what's my mailer look like? What, how did I approach the schools? What little nuances do you need to know? Because there's things you could do wrong to get yourself excluded from that world, and there's things that make it very easy to get into that world. So that's, I try to include all of that in the course so that if you just follow the videos and do it step by step, there's no reason why you couldn't be, out there teaching a class by, maybe September. And then from then on, if you're like me, you'll love it and be married to it and do it forever. And it, I'm almost, there's days where I wonder if I'm at capacity, like, do I really need to take on more clients? I mean, I'm making a nice living, I get referrals. But I think you still have to market, and I do it partially for that, and I do it because I really enjoy it. I like teaching the class. For me, I look forward to my next class. It's not something I dread doing or want to get away from. It's something, and I've been doing it for years, and I think it's probably, for me, it's been the best possible way to market this business. I'm old school. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's this is the new online marketing. It isn't. This is old school. This is sending out a mailer. But you could do it. You could actually market these events online if you wanted to do it. Some guys are doing that, having tremendous success. I've found most of the time, most of the ones I've investigated, I'll just give you my little 2 cents. I've talked to some of the guys selling these programs of online marketing. And when I press them, because a lot of them are advisors like me who just decided to teach their strategy. When I press them, hey, online marketing versus mail house, what do you think? They're like, oh, if you could do a live event with a mail house, the quality of your leads are always going to be tenfold better. And anyone who's honest is probably going to tell you that. So I'm not saying that online marketing is not. I mean, I'm involved in it. I'm top of Google in my neighborhood. I get phone calls from Google from some of the work I've put in, but it's not. I'm not making a living off of that. It's my classes that's really fueled my success to the biggest amount. And I will say I did make top of the table during COVID, which I'm very proud of. And I actually made true top of the table, not COVID reduced top of the table, which actually pissed me off. So, and I made it last year as well. So 2 years top of the table now. The year before that was core to the table. And I've never been a big MDRT guy. I mean, in 30 years, I never joined. I couldn't see paying money to pat myself on the back, but I guess, I figure at some point I might want to do coaching and more mentorship than I do. I guess if I get too old for my clients to trust my mental capacity anymore, then I might switch over to the coaching world, or just do it out of the joy of giving back. I just met a guy last week who he worked for a firm called Three Mentors. You may have heard of them back in the day. And he's like, if you're not giving back, you're just a jerk. Like this industry is, it gives so much to you. How do you not turn around and try to help some other people? And especially this Facebook group is so cool because I see these guys struggling, and that's why I put those posts out there, these heartfelt posts. They're really from my heart. There's no there's no motive to pitch anything. This program, like I said, I felt like if I didn't charge a fee, no one would value it. And because I just know that that's how the world works. If you don't pay for it, you're not going to run out and try it. You're going to stick it on the shelf for sure. And it'll just be one more download in your computer. But if you put down some money and you buy a program, maybe you'll actually put the effort in and try it and find out that it works. So that, and sure, I'd like to get somewhat compensated for the time and effort I put into it. But I tried to price it modestly. It's certainly not going to be a huge profit center for my business. I really did it more as a labor of love, to give back and to put something together that was like systematic and more of a training program.
If you were to describe the price of the course compared to doing one workshop, would you say that it's probably the price of maybe half the cost of doing a workshop?
Yeah, like a third.
Or a third of the price.
Yeah, but you'd still have to go out. I mean, to be fair, you still got to spend some money to market your workshop.
Right.
Okay. So, what does it cost? Someone asked me that the other day from the group. What does it cost to run a workshop? Really, to run a good class is going to cost you maybe somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000. I think you could get away with $3,000. And I show you in the class a cheaper way to do it. where you could probably get it done for about $1,000, maybe 1,500 all in. So I show you kind of a stepping stone way to do it versus, so, maybe you could do a smaller, cheaper workshop and then use that as a stepping stone to go out and do a full-on workshop. But I mean, you're going to spend that in leads, right? Maybe you got to get your leads somewhere, unless you're just, sitting there hoping for the phone to ring. I'm sure you're doing some kind of marketing that's costing you money. This is a business, right? So you're going to spend, probably less than you'd spend to buy, definitely less than you'd spend to buy leads. Some of these guys are telling you buy a batch of leads a week. By the way, I never did that. I bought a batch of leads per month and then chased the heck out of them. And I know that's not the best way to do it. And that's probably why I struggled. But if you don't do it, if you buy a batch of leads a week, man, now you have a cash flow problem. I mean, how do you solve that? That's tricky. And I know some guys are doing it, but I never got there with the leads. Anyway, that's just my take. But yeah, I mean, leads aren't cheap either. You got to do some kind of marketing. If you're going to spend money, why not get in front of people on the most favorable way with the best positioning so that you're going to get deals from this today, tomorrow. I mean, I have people call me literally 10 years later that still have my stuff from my class and that didn't forget about me, and want to come in for an appointment when they're ready. So it's a really great way to position yourself. But yeah, there's an investment for sure. But that's roughly what I think. I spend about 3,000, to 5,000 if I'm really trying to push it out, and get a full room. But I'll do, $3,000, $3,500 of 5,000 piece mailing. That sounds about right for me. That's about typical. But I'll just tell you this, last year, now this is a little bit different because I do a 4-module full-on estate, full-on retirement planning. That's, I've graduated to that. The one I've given you in the course is simpler because I guess I'm assuming there's a lot of advisors out there maybe aren't ready to start talking about estate planning and tax planning. So I tried to make this so that anybody can do it. So, when I do my full-on 4-module 2-night class, I did one in March last year, and it was my year. I got 5 or 6 like really top quality clients from that event alone, that easily could have made my year. I mean, I had some referrals on top of that and existing client business on top of that, but just right there, that was, my March class carried my whole year. This March wasn't as great. I did, you're gonna have good batches and bad batches, but I can't remember the last time I've just flopped, but that does happen and can happen. You can do a workshop and flop, but consistency is key in any marketing you're gonna do. You have to just keep going out there and doing it. But it's rare. For me, it's been a very, very rare occurrence where I've just had a flop of a workshop. So you may have to commit to do a couple of these to get your feet wet, to find out, to work the bugs out, but once you do, it's like, man, it's a cakewalk after that. It's really nice. I mean, people are coming in wanting your advice, and as long as you're not shoving it down their throat and you're being consultative and you have a 2-call at least approach, you're going to write a ridiculous amount of business doing it this way. So it's worth the investment. But again, it's for people who either are comfortable public speaking or want to become comfortable and think that they want to attack this and are wondering, how the heck do people even get into the schools? Because when I first started back in MetLife, I saw somebody doing these educational workshops. I mean, this is got to be my 3rd year in the business or something. And I was like, man, that would be cool. That guy's got a good gig, but how the heck do you do that? Yeah, I wanted to answer that question. It's easy. It's actually a lot easier than you think. So I want to give you that encouragement. If that's even a remotely, something you want to attempt, it is not as hard as you think to break into this marketplace. There are some steps that'll help you do it. And that's what I wanted to put into the course, just to give you everything you could possibly need to do that. So the course is $1,000 one-time fee. That's it. And you get access to all my videos, all my my content. My I have a book. I've written a Amazon best-selling book, Financial Planning for the Not Yet Wealthy. This is kind of like the course book that goes along with the course, because this supports everything I teach, you know, in that 1 hour session. You can buy these books and give them out, you know, to your clients. You don't have to. It's not an obligation. I actually lowered the price. The book was selling for 20. I think I put it down to $10, so it would be affordable if somebody wanted to buy, you know, 10, and there's no minimums, you know, you just buy them at $10 a book. And it basically, the book is kind of teaching people, and you can buy the book without buying the course if anybody wants to do that first. It's on Amazon. And the book is stuff I learned a lot from Lou, and just, you know, how to present this stuff conceptually, and not, you know, not product pitch, but just give them the concept of indexing, and the concept of why all your money doesn't belong in your 401k, and the concept of why all your money doesn't belong in your house. If you could teach them those three concepts, and that's pretty much what my course does, you've set up in their mind a perfect situation to go in and then just move the money around, and boom, you've got a deal, you know. And it should all fall into place, like it has for me many times over. So cool.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Okay, so we've run a little over on time, but if there's any questions, definitely like to open it up for some questions. I don't see anything in the Facebook chat right now, but anyway, pipe up. Let's hear from you.
Hey, Tony, this is Ray Alkali.
Hey, Ray.
Oh, hold on a second. Oh, I guess I can turn my camera on. Forgot to do that. I came in late, so I didn't hear the whole thing. I'll watch the video. I had a meeting I had to be at. How different is your presentation or class or whatever that you're offering through this thing different than your IPS kind of origination? Am I making sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, some of it's based on what I learned from the IPS guys. I mean, they're, you know, this was a course. I guess the difference is they don't really teach specifically that I know of on how to break into the adult community education. That's where it's niched specifically, because that's what I'm trying to teach you how to do. I do use some of their other ideas to get you there, like as a stepping stone. And the presentation itself was kind of my revamped version of theirs after I've done it over and over and over through, you know, years of changing it from, like what I was talking early on about the equity harvesting. I had to find something new. So I kind of created this out of necessity because the housing market crashed. I had to go teach something a little different. And that's where this course was born from. But I've used it for years on end successfully. I actually don't use it currently. I just dusted it off the shelf, and I'm going to have my son teach this exact class. So that's how much I believe in it. I wouldn't have him go out and teach it if I didn't think it was going to work, or put money behind it if I didn't think it was going to work. So I know it works. So.
And then one follow up, and if you answer this, don't worry about it, just say you already answered this. I noticed that you charge for the classes on your website.
Oh, I do. Yeah. You don't have to. It's optional. I think I get a better quality of a prospect when they pay a fee. Also, my community college out here requires it.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Okay.
Yeah, they don't all. You know, it's very different per marketplace. But the one out here does. That's why they're willing to let me come teach. You know, they're sharing in my fee for the course.
Okay, and then last question: how many people do you typically get when you charge?
I still fill it up either way.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've had I may get a little less. You know, I might fill to capacity. To me, capacity is like 35 people. I really don't want to be in front of more than 35 people at a time. It's hard to manage the room at that point. So I've filled it up to capacity when I've done free ones. I probably don't when I charge. But the people are such a better quality, and they're more serious when I charge, that I'm very happy to charge.
it's interesting that you actually filled it up when you don't, because I'm surprised that many people show up. That's that's what I was getting at. I was curious because I'm hearing all kinds of things that people don't show up. They're not interested in workshops as much. And that's why I was
They
asking.
still are. That's nonsense. I
Okay.
think that's a lot of noise. I think it is harder. It's much harder to fill up a workshop using online marketing. I've done both. I've tested both.
Okay.
Online marketing, I'm not saying it doesn't work. It works. I just did with Charlie Gipple, we did a Social Security workshop, and we got people to show up. But it's like pulling teeth doing it through because everybody's quick to enroll, but then they don't follow through because it's just easier to dismiss something you did online. When it's, for some reason, when you do it through the mail, you get such a better quality, and people, I mean, I get a really high show up rate, like,
Okay.
like 80-85%, show up to my workshop. So it's worth spending the extra money on the mail.
I appreciate the answers, and I do appreciate your post on the group. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. I enjoy doing that.
Actually, yeah, there's something about the mail and things being tactile that you can hold in your hand. There's something about that I was talking to somebody about last week about that.
I think there's and nobody knows for sure. Marketing is a big yes, right? But I think online marketing is, there's still, like, people are still leery of who's on the other end of the computer, right? We've been taught that.
Yeah.
Beware, you're talking to that sexy girl, she might be an overweight guy. you don't know who you're getting, right? So we're all a little bit worried, like, is this guy the next Bernie Madoff or what? But when it comes in the mail, that's traditional. It's something we're familiar with, and I think it's easier for people to get over that mental hurdle.
Really quick, Tony, if I can, you kind of answered this question in mentioning that you're going to be allowing your son to teach the course, and you kind of evolved it yourself, or to build it. But how much space is there for evolution as clientele become more tech savvy and more savvy about the financial world themselves, and just more exposed to a multitude of different concepts?
So are you asking, like, as technology improves and, people are more and more driven to the online world, which they certainly are, things are changing. I get that. Are you saying, will this still work?
Yeah, but it is, like, I understand it's time tested, it's proven, but how do you see it being able to continue to work as things change? Like, for example, everybody's going into, Bitcoin, not that that's here nor there, but, everybody's looking at Bitcoin now, things like that.
Yeah, here's my take on that for what it's worth. I mean, look, let's take newspapers. Newspapers haven't been necessary for decades, right? And yeah, most of them are dead now. But how long did it take them to die? There's a lot of people who still like to thumb through, and there's still people who like to thumb through the newspaper. They're still not completely dead. You can still buy a newspaper, right? So I think sometimes we think the world is changing faster than it's changing. I think the tried and true still is going to work for a time. Will it become more obsolete to meet face to face? And sure, it might. I could see that. I mean, be more. And if so, then I'll do webinars instead of in-person classes. But and maybe still do it through the local college, right? Because they still have a presence, and there's still that implied endorsement that I talk about in my course. So I think, I think there may be refinements that come, but I think this will work for a long time.
And
Thank you.
Now this will lead into the next question, but I think that the older the demographic you're targeting, the more that you can work with more traditional methods, because it's going to be more comfortable and familiar for them, as opposed to the youngest people. Okay, I got to admit, if you're going to target 20 to 25-year-olds, you better be on TikTok.
Right.
And there's some people that are on TikTok and they're doing very well with it. That's not necessarily me, but I'll be on there. I am on there, but I'll do it piecemeal. Anyway, but Randy Taylor's asking this question: what is the average age of the people that show up to your workshops?
Good question. That's a good question. So like I said, I kind of live in two spaces. My main space now is I'm just looking for people who are about to retire, right? that's who that's my day to day today. But that I evolved into that, right? So, if you're newer, you're not going to get that guy who's got $1 million and doesn't know what to do with it. It's going to be really hard for you to land that client. So you're probably not looking for that guy. So when I do those, I'm looking for someone who's on the cusp of retiring. When I do these classes that I put in there, I'm looking for 40 years old to 60. And that's a pretty wide spread, but 40 to 60. And why? Anyone north of 40 starts getting concerned about their future. Before 40, you think you're going to live forever and you got plenty of time. The reality is not so, but that's what you think. And it's very hard to convince a 35-year-old they need to be putting money away for the future that's so far away. When you do find one of those guys, man, you can really change their picture and in a big way. And I love working with smart 35-year-olds, and I have some. Usually they're my clients' kids, but I wouldn't target them. I would target 40 and up, because once you hit 40, like I said, you say, oh man, this is coming faster than I thought. And now you're starting to think about, I better put something away and I better have my act together. But most people aren't there until they're 40. Why up to 60? Well, because there's more and more opportunity as they get closer to retirement to find money that's they've already saved and now you can invest. So I like to, bump into annuity sales. Also, the older people maybe have worked 3 jobs and have 2 old 401ks that nobody's paying attention to. And I'm looking for that money, so that's my sweet spot. Also, you're making more money, right? Once you hit over 40, you're probably better off in your career than you were when you were 25, right? So these guys have more disposable income to work with. So that's generally my range. That's what I shoot for, 40 to 60 year olds.
Perfect.
On that course.
All right. Anything else? Randy, nice to see you.
Thank you. I'm so used to welcoming people. I'll say, I hope I'm welcome. It's my first one of your group meetings. Thank you so much. It honestly took me this long to figure out that I have to go to the bottom of the screen rather than my window to actually unmute. In fact, I got a call coming in now. I'm trying to, it's an insurance company, so I think I can let it go. They'll still be there later. Now, I just want to mention one thing. Once I worked with one of the larger insurance companies, selling annuities, and I got a deal where I would go out with attorneys. It's probably a conflict of interest, but they were selling to senior groups, like at a place where they actually lived. Has anybody had any success getting into senior homes or senior associations or anything like that? Because I have no clue, frankly, where to start on that. I know how to sell them, but not necessarily how to get in front of them to speak.
I did do a presentation in a nursing home once. That was interesting. Nothing came of it though. And I didn't spend any money on it. I was just, actually my client's daughter worked there and she was the activities director. And she was looking for someone to come in, and I taught something on basic like beneficiaries and things that might be important to an older clientele, hoping that maybe their kids might be around. And it didn't work out, but I'm sure if you structured it right, it could be lucrative.
And you only did it once, so you didn't do it repeatedly, which could have built some traction or something. So
Sure, yeah, there's guys who do it. I've heard of it. I've heard of people just selling final expense, through doing community centers like that, or even assisted, those places where seniors go to live that maybe are a little lower cost, and you can get in to do an educational event and sell final expense policies. There's a guy who sells a whole program on that specifically. So yeah, there's all different ways to get in front of groups.
It seems like the key would be you don't want to be in a place where they're in poor health, like an extended care facility, maybe a place where they're actually paying, $3,000 a month for a room, and they can afford to take a look at things. And more importantly, you might be able to help them pass some money on to their heirs. And annuities, I tell you, I've been selling life insurance for 39 years, and annuities are half the work. I think
I love annuities. I do quite a bit of my income, about half probably.
Awesome.
In a given year will come from annuity sales.
Okay.
And mostly fixed index.
Next people go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with that in mind, I think we're out of time. So I think we ought to wrap it up here. Thank you all so much for attending. I got a lot out of this. And Tony, thank you so much for sharing. And of course, keep going with your posts because okay, I do wish you'd use the return key. I'd love some more paragraphs. But other than that, I love what you write. So you get us thinking and get some great engagement. You got a good follow going.
Stream of consciousness. That's kind of how it flows. And the stream of consciousness doesn't have a lot of room for return keys, but I guess I could edit.
If I had any complaint, that would be the only thing, because I got this wall of text. They're like, okay, I'm following you here, but it's worth reading. I just got to sort it out. That's all. No, anyway, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and end it here, but this recording will be on Facebook. I'll upload it to the YouTube channel. You got the links in there. Check out Tony's course. He's got his narrative in there. I think if you're really looking to go break out into that adult market, Tony knows how to do that. So, all right. Thank you so much again.
Thanks,
Tony.
everybody. I enjoyed chatting with you all today, and happy to help any way I can. If you feel like you need to reach out and have some questions afterwards, shoot me an email or direct message me, whatever. We'll connect. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you all. All right. Bye-bye.